Welcome to Power of the Tribe podcast. I'm your host, John Connors. I'm also the founder and head instructor of Connors Martial Arts, where we teach you Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, Muay Thai kickboxing, and mixed martial arts. Reach out to us, and we will make your life 37 to 43% better.
Somewhere in that range.
Yes. We'll decrease your waist size. We'll increase your testosterone. People will like you better. You'll have more natural charisma.
Confidence.
Clearer skin. Shinier hair.
And that the je ne sais quoi.
Je ne sais quoi.
Which is what you have written over the door as you enter.
I have that written over the door when you come in?
Yeah.
That's our motto, je ne sais quoi. That should be our motto. And I'm here with Dan Robin, Dr. Dan. Dan, I was thinking about you have a PhD from Cornell. That is very impressive.
I don't, though.
You don't?
I went to Cornell.
Oh, as an undergraduate.
Then got a PhD.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So, no, it's not.
I'm not impressed.
There goes that.
You just went from putting on airs to being self-deprecating in like one sentence.
But, yeah, well, that's my life.
We covered the gambit there. How you doing?
I'm doing, I'd say, 7 out of 10.
7 out of 10.
You know what? Honestly, I'm doing good today. Yesterday, so we've talked on this podcast a fair amount about like dieting. We've been getting in shape and losing weight. I think I need to make some small adjustments. And as we've talked about on the podcast, not abandon the idea or change things, but I need some adjustments because the truth is, I sort of don't always, you'd know this better than anyone, but when I'm dieting, I'm losing like 2 to 3 pounds a day. It's not good. It's not right.
I don't understand. Yeah.
That's what I'm losing. There's nothing to understand.
So why is that not good?
Because I think it's not healthy. You shouldn't be dropping 2 to 3 pounds. And I'll explain further.
All right.
So on Wednesday this week, so maybe I had like a 24-hour flu or something.
Okay.
But on Wednesday, I had to get off the treadmill. Like I couldn't finish I was like, I'm dying. I can't finish this workout. Okay. And then on Thursday, I woke up and I was like, I think I'm starting to die. I was like, I think I might be just shutting down. Like, this is it. And so I was like, I can't tell. It might be like I had the flu.
Yeah.
But it might be that I'm on this caloric intake. I'm trying to work out every day and so far below the calories I need that like I'm losing 2 or 3 pounds a day and just like it's not sustainable. You know what I mean? I felt so miserable.
Sounds like you just might have to tweak what you're doing, right?
I think, yeah, that's what I mean. That's why I'm saying not drop it, but I need some adjustments.
Because I have not been super clean with my diet. I was pretty good this week. Today I was about 181, so I'm down a pound from last Friday, and I'm about 3 pounds over. My training weight is 178, so I don't feel that bad about it, but I haven't been eating super clean. So
that's what I think I need to do is like a little in between.
Yeah.
Because you can't be, because it's really consistent with me. I know, like, so yesterday I said, forget it. I'm dying. I'm literally starving myself to death. So I ate, I drank a little.
What are you eating? When you're starving to death?
I'll have like hot dogs, hamburgers.
Well,
turkey dogs. Well, meat. I take out all pasta and breads and that kind of stuff.
I think that's good. I think you might have to just have better quality.
Not really hot dogs, but it's like, well, it's not like Nathan's hot dogs, but it's like some kind of, like some organic turkey dog or something like that. So that's what this is the thing.
Dan, you stumbled upon one of my pet peeves.
What's that?
It's these fake health foods like turkey dog. I mean, any hot dog is not good for you. Just take the hot dog
but
out of
it could
the
be
equation.
better, a turkey dog.
Yeah, but just eat like grass-fed ground beef or grass-fed steak or
but it doesn't
chicken
taste
cutlets.
But it doesn't taste as good. That's the key.
All right.
But that's part of my thing. Like it'll be like I'm starving to death, but if you look at what I eat, I'm like I had a couple turkey dogs for lunch and then a couple ground beef patties for dinner. It shouldn't be starving to death level, right? Maybe
you might have had some kind of bug, like a little bit of a bug. You might have been a little dehydrated.
But what about
Dan?
Like losing 2 pounds a day?
I think
that seems a little But then, so after yesterday, I ate like pasta and this stuff.
Yeah.
I'm up 2 pounds. Like it shoots like pretty
So what do you
reliably
weigh?
for me. 177 today.
Yeah, you look great. That's a great weight. Here's what I think. I think much of that so-called weight isn't fat loss and fat gain. I think a lot of that is water. So I think when you eat more processed food and you eat more of those simple carbs, your body retains water. So that's really probably the most of the shift that's happening. And you might have been a little dehydrated when you were failing on the treadmill and not feeling great. I suspect that's what it was.
It could have been some kind of flu too.
Yeah, or both.
Because truthfully, my daughter had that where she was, and my wife were like, had almost the same thing earlier where they they were just out of it for a day and then came back. So maybe I'm just worried about nothing.
You know, I was listening to Dr. David Sinclair. Did we talk about this last week? He's the longevity researcher at Harvard.
Yeah.
So he was saying that when you burn body fat for energy, which will happen, you know, if you're taking in fewer calories. I think if you're taking in less sugar, if you're fasting, it creates this brown fat or these fatty acids when you burn that fat. And those fatty acids are supposedly super healthy for you, and they turn on your longevity genes. So it's like really good for you.
So I should keep bouncing around, like you're saying.
I think it might be you might have
always
discovered
burning,
something.
I'm always burning the fat off.
I think, yeah.
I could
during
be
the week you're burning the fat off, and then you're relaxing on the weekends, I think that might be the way to do it.
Whenever I tell anyone, you know, if I'm like, every weekend I put on 8 pounds and then I shed it over the week and then I put it back, they're like, that's terrible. You know?
But who are these people? They're not doctors or scientists.
Nobody.
They're idiots. Yeah, they're probably 35 pounds overweight themselves, right?
No, it's everybody. I mean, nobody would think, who listening is like, oh, that sounds healthy, 8 pounds up, 8 pounds down every week.
You know how people judge whether something sounds healthy or not? How far it deviates from the norm.
Yeah, probably.
So if you're not eating what everyone else is eating, that's not healthy. That's the way people roll. That's all there is to it. Yeah. You know, there's these guys who are, I think it's Jordan Peterson and his daughter, and I think Joe Rogan did it for January. Today's January 31st. Maybe this is the last day of doing it, where they did an all-meat diet. And when some people, there's some fraction of the population, when you start discussing an all-meat diet, they freak the F out. They go, oh, my God, you're going to kill yourself. They just freak out. And these are the same people that put all kinds of chemicals in their body, you know, eat the most processed garbage possible. But God forbid somebody just eat meat. That just freaks them out. Like if you ate meat and some horribly processed bread thing that's not even bread, and threw some sugary ketchup on it. Well, that's healthy. Right. But just meat, you're crazy. It drives people nuts.
Yeah, and nobody knows what really works or what. First of all, hasn't what's Atkins diet? Isn't that like meat and cheese or something like that?
I think that's,
or it's low carb. It's what
I think it's more of a lower carb, higher fat thing. But some people, when they do this all meat thing, like I think like Jordan Peterson, like he basically lost all his excess body fat, all the inflammation left his body, his gum disease went away. His daughter has severe arthritis, where she had to get an ankle replaced. She's a young woman, like she had severe problems. And they all went away, and
with the meat diet,
with just the
meat. See that I'm suspicious of all, like the whole topic of nutrition.
Well, I think
one thing I was going to say real quick is that my suspicion overall is that our bodies are kind of resilient and can take in a lot of food and deal with it. Like, so you can tweak it this way. Some things are healthy, some things aren't. But
I think there's a lot of individuation. So if your body's racked in pain and inflammation and arthritis, and you start eating just beef, and it all goes away, I would stick with it then. You know what I mean? If I'm racked with pain and dysfunction, and all my pain and dysfunction leaves, I'd keep doing whatever I'm doing.
But I'll give you a good example. I just recently read a story.
But it doesn't mean it's right for everybody.
Because I wish I could remember who. Someone said they went to vegan, and almost the same symptoms went away. I think they said arthritis went away, and like
I hear that about a lot of people that go vegetarian and vegan, and what I then hear about 12 to 18 months later is I felt like shit. I had to go back to eating meat. Yeah. Not everybody, but a lot of people do that. So I think what happens is when somebody does some kind of elimination diet where they eliminate something from their diet is they probably get rid of a lot of the processed food. So they probably lose a lot of the toxins and things that are causing
if you go all meat
inflammation.
or vegetarian, both of those are getting rid of a lot of things, right? Like they're getting rid of all. Well,
I think the tricky thing about not necessarily. If you go vegetarian, there's a lot of them still eat a lot of pasta and bread and everything like that. So it depends on how you do it, But I just think processed food has got to be the enemy for the most part. So the more you remove processed food out of your diet, the better off you're going to be. I mean, I think that's a great sort of first place to start. I don't know.
Yeah. I had one more thought too about mentally when I was starving myself to death this week.
Yeah.
Like how we talked a lot on here, and you talk about with jiu-jitsu, where you were saying you'd never said I'm gassed. That was the first time I heard of this idea.
So the idea I have is, I should tell the anecdote, the story, right? This was several years ago. I had some injury where I couldn't train for 2 or 3 weeks. And then it cleared up. I came back and I started training, and we have all tough guys at the academy that I was training with. And man, it was really hard. I was just feeling it. I was really feeling fatigued and gassed after every roll. And somebody who asked me, "How do you feel?" I'm like, "Oof, man, I'm tired. I'm tired." And then I found myself saying that day after day, and people asking me every day, "How you feeling?" "I'm tired." And then I realized it was 2 weeks later, and somebody asked me, "How you feeling?" And I'm like, why am I saying I'm tired? Yeah. I've been training for 2 weeks. That doesn't make any sense. I should be fine. And I said to myself, the next time somebody asks me that, I'm not going to say I'm tired. I'm going to say I feel great. And like a maniac Tony Robbins thing. Yeah, right. You know what I mean? Like some stupid, totally irrational thing that makes no sense. And I started saying that, and I immediately started feeling better.
Yeah, I think you do get in your own head.
Totally.
And again, we're not doing magic. We're not saying magic wand. It doesn't change everything, but it helps.
You're sending yourself a message. So what I came away from that is what I instruct my students and my competitors is to never use the words "I'm tired" or "I feel tired," because tired implies a long-term condition it's going to take a while to recover from. So I tell them, just say you're winded, because winded means I just need to get a few breaths and then I can keep going. And Dan, isn't that pretty much always the case? No matter how fatigued you feel, whatever physical distress you're in, I just need to catch my breath a little bit, and then I can keep going. I can get back at it. I might have to gear down my pace a little bit, but I don't have to stop completely. Whenever you do a lot of running, it's pretty rare when you have to completely stop, right?
Right, yeah.
I mean, you could just keep walking,
Virtually
right?
Never,
like if you're out running hard.
Or just run really slow. As you're
run
basically
really
recovering.
slow, yeah. I've heard they have these things, what are they called? These hunters that are like endurance hunters where they can just jog behind a deer for 10 miles and then the deer just gets exhausted.
Because only the canines can outrun humans. Like that's one thing we can actually, well, not nowadays, but we're designed to outrun things. You can outrun.
Is that what it
deer.
is then?
Yeah. We can outrun deers or woolly mammoths.
We're slower, but we just keep going.
Yeah. The only thing that can outrun dogs and wolves, and we can't outrun them, but anything else we can run down.
And that's why we love dogs and wolves on this podcast.
Well, I guess they could run with us.
Yeah, they're awesome. Love them.
But part of that mindset, you gave me the idea of rewording things in your head.
Yeah.
And one thing that's been working for me lately when I'm hungry, because everyone does this, right? You're like, I'm starving, like, oh my God. And I do it too, obviously. I'm not different than anyone else. But I changed it. When I started feeling really hungry, I started using the term to myself, this is annoying. And it really minimized it for me. It really worked for me. Like, I'd be like, instead of saying I'm starving, I'd be like, I'd feel it to myself. I'd just be like, this is annoying. And then I could sit there and be like, and ignore it. Cause I'm like, yeah, it's annoying. And it worked and I used it for other things. Like on the treadmill, when I'm exhausted, I'll be like, I'm dying on this treadmill. Obviously not always. Cause just on Wednesday, I was like, and when I said I had to stop, I didn't really stop. I did what you said. I slowed it way down. Is what I meant by I just couldn't do the workout is what I meant. So it doesn't work 100% of the time, but even like in pain when I'm running, I'll be like, this is annoying to myself, and it really minimizes it. It's like, are you really dying? Are you really starving? Are you really? And I'll be like, I'm not. I'm just a little annoyed. It's just a little uncomfortable.
Yeah, it's your body giving you some information. Yeah.
And so when I minimize it to myself, it helps. It helps me anyway. I like to ignore.
I liked what you said the other day when you're feeling those feelings of
pain. I still do that.
You
too,
say that it's my body burning off disgusting flab or something. Yeah. I laughed about that this week. I thought of that a couple of times. I like feeling a little bit hungry. When I'm in my routine where I have some coffee in the morning, go work out, and then I come home and I have lunch, I feel a little hungry before I have that lunch, and it feels great. And then I eat that.
Yeah, I felt
and
that
then we
too.
go work out in the evening and then come back. So I have those 2 meals, and I feel, then in the evening I'll probably feel really hungry, and it feels great. And then it feels great to eat that too.
Yeah. And it feels like you don't have that bloated feeling in your stomach.
Right.
You just feel like a little,
But when I get away from the working out and put a few meals together without any workouts in between, that's when I don't feel that great. Yeah, definitely.
All right.
Okay.
Are we moving on?
We're moving on. Okay, let's move. Oh, so we were talking about something last week, Dan, that I thought was worth revisiting a little bit. And we're talking about how most people underestimate their own abilities. And we were saying in today's world, that's usually hurting you, not helping you. And I often ask people, it's funny, we have a cultural kind of ethos where we don't like people who seem full of themselves, right?
Right.
That are we think they may be overestimating their abilities. Now, why do we dislike that so much as a culture? Isn't that a common theme?
Yeah. And I think, and so I've actually been thinking about this lately in a different way, which was this, the idea of what's the most common insult now you hear is like snowflake, right? Like that's the big thing. Like
that's a big thing.
It's a big thing. There's a bunch of the kids today,
too
bunch
soft.
of snowflakes. And snowflake meaning they're taught that they're individual, right? Like that there's no one quite like them, like a snowflake.
They're as unique. Each snowflake is unique.
Each snowflake is unique. You're told you're unique. And so I get it. I get no one likes a spoiled little brat who thinks they're unique and they're not. But as usual, I think humanity snapped back too hard against it. And so I was taking, I think everyone accepts.
So the snowflake is not only unique, but it's also very fragile, right?
Yeah.
Like it can't take any disturbance and it'll crumble, right? Okay.
But then now it's become like you hear the common thing, and I hadn't really thought about it, so I accepted it until I started thinking about it. Parents that'll be like, look, my kid's no snowflake. Like I let them know they're no snowflake. And I'm like, should you be doing that? Like to an extent, no one wants a spoiled little kid, but
right.
You don't want to crush their spirit either. You know what I mean? So as usual, people swing one way or the other way, you know? And it's like, to your point, starting pretty young, a lot of people think that it's almost your job to tell someone they're to underestimate themselves or to not think they're so great or not to put themselves too much on a pedestal or, to be humble and have humility. And you're taught that your whole life. And I think it leads to what you're saying, where people are super cautious about ever overestimating themselves or ever, everyone jumps on that. You're like, why do you think you're so great? You think you're, and I think it starts really young. And it starts, and we all champion it. We're all like, make sure your kid doesn't think they're so, don't have snowflake kids, don't think there's something special. And your point, I think, is an extension of this, of like, maybe we need to visit or think about having a little more positive view of yourself or other people.
I mean, what's the downside of overestimating your own ability? You try something and fail. But if you're overestimating your own ability, you're probably going to perform at your maximum anyways, unless you under-prepare. Like when I think of fighters, they go, "Oh, he took that guy too lightly." That doesn't really mean that they overestimated their own ability. It's more they underprepared because they underestimated the other guy's ability, right?
Right.
But I think it can hurt. Like, overestimating, I guess, in a romantic situation, if some guy is a 6 and he says to himself, "I'm only going to settle for a 10," he could face rejection for the rest of his life, right? Just going out asking to date people who are completely out of his league, and no one ever concedes. So he basically wastes his entire life and never finds a mate. So that is dangerous.
What you're saying is you can a little bit overestimate. Just don't.
Well, I think it depends on the context, right? And in the venue, perhaps.
Maybe, but also.
Or fighting. If you go up to some giant guy, you see a lot of these YouTube videos like that. I think I saw one on Twitter or Facebook where there was this gigantic guy, a bouncer in front of a club or something, and this little scrawny guy must have been drunk. Did you see it? He was like pestering the guy, and he like slapped the guy, and the big guy slapped him once and it sent him out of the screen. Like you can't even see it, and then they got to turn the camera, and the guy's unconscious on the ground. And that was a mistake.
There's a few videos like that. Or I've seen some where he didn't even fight him, but you just see this nerdy little kid screaming like, "I'll F you up," to some giant guy, and you're like, what is, like, people are in a fantasy world. Like, so in these cases,
those are bad cases. Yeah.
You can't, but maybe it's all the same principle. It's always good to overestimate yourself just a little
bit, maybe,
but not wildly. Because I think, as we're saying this, I'm thinking, and maybe some people out there, they're thinking like, nobody likes people that overestimate themselves, like people that brag or they're not really great. Like, say someone that's not great at jiu-jitsu and they're bragging all the time how good they are. That's annoying. Like,
that's annoying.
You don't like people like that.
That's slightly different. Bragging and overestimating yourself are slightly different, I suppose.
We're talking more about internal. More than.
So I guess part of the problem is, if you brag and rub people the wrong way, you can lose friends and acquaintances. But I think sometimes those people actually, they gain a following as well, right? Yeah, so you're losing some, but you're gaining some. You know, like a Donald Trump, you like half the country hates him and the other half like him. So I don't know. I mean, you couldn't get more braggadocio than that guy. So it's not hurting him too bad, I guess. Yeah. I don't know.
But the overall point you're saying is, I see it more as internally. There's a benefit to not putting yourself down. Like, because I was saying, I think now a lot of people champion the idea of putting yourself down, being humble, and don't be. You mean
people who like berate themselves out loud at the gym?
Yeah. So what John's referring to is
that was in the last episode, Dan.
When I work out, I will out loud berate myself sometimes, like just from like lifting weights. Like I'll finish a set and be like, "Oh, you suck!" Like, you know, I can't.
Does that help the next set or something?
It's a way of almost like pumping myself up. I say it very aggressively.
So you're getting angry.
Yeah.
I think if you're angry, you
get
stronger.
I say very angry. Let's be clear. I don't do it like crying. I'm not like, "You suck." Like, put down the weight and just start like whining, like, "Oh my God, I'm so weak." You know.
Okay.
It's
so you're accessing your anger.
Yes.
I think studies show that when you're angry, you actually can show more physical strength. So I think you're onto something there.
Yeah, I don't
definitely.
know. Yeah. It's like yelling at myself, not like whining at myself.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm doing there.
Yeah. That
still
works.
Maybe a little weird. At least
I think you're just getting angry.
Especially the part when I'm muttering out loud. It gets a little weird, muttering angry thoughts out loud.
But if you slightly overestimate your ability in jiu-jitsu, right?
Mm-hmm.
What is the downside of that?
I
don't think anything, right? You'll do your best without hesitation, and then you'll find out, oh, this other person's better than I thought they were. I'm not quite as good as they are or something, right? So, and you'll learn probably.
And I think the much, much more common thing to do is underestimating yourself and feeling like crap after lots of rolls, right?
Yeah. Or if you really underestimate yourself, then you're going to hesitate. You're not going to take advantage of opportunities. So it's going to inhibit your performance just in general. So you're not going to be as good as you could be. So I'm going to try to overestimate my abilities a little bit more.
In a lot
Just
of
a little
ways.
bit. Yeah.
Right? Again, it's not only jiu-jitsu, right? It's a lot of things. Just feel free.
You know what it must go
That's
to?
the take-home point, right? Like, feel free to feel a little better about yourself, and don't put those block dampeners on yourself, which
Right.
I do all the time. I do, don't you? You know, like
A little bit, yeah. Now that I think about it, it probably has to do with that Big Five personality inventory of agreeableness, disagreeableness, right? Somebody who's highly disagreeable thinks they're worth more than they really are, and so they're not satisfied when they get what they get. And people who are too agreeable will settle for less than they should probably. So I don't know if I'm agreeable or disagreeable. I think I'm probably average, but probably serve me to be slightly more disagreeable, demand a little bit more from the world than I'm currently getting.
yeah. You can't really hurt.
I think in our society right now, that can't hurt too much, right? You might annoy somebody here or there, but I don't know.
And that's also an interesting point where it sounds like you say agreeable, disagreeable, and
Mhm.
it sounds like you should be as agreeable as you can. Like, disagreeable sounds bad, agreeable sounds good, but you're saying it's not that easy.
It's not that easy.
Yeah.
They both have plus minus.
Yeah.
If you're the most agreeable person on the planet, you're just going to be, helping people, giving people rides to the airport every day and helping them paint their living room. And you're
Getting
just going to be
nothing in
doing
return.
favors for people. Yeah. That's what the most agreeable people do. And not getting a raise and just not getting a good seat. And, you're just losing out on life. And if you're the most disagreeable person in the world, you're probably getting the most pay you can probably get, but you probably don't have satisfying relationships. People don't really like you that much. And even if you go to a 5-star restaurant, you probably don't appreciate it because it's not good. It should have been 6 stars. It's not good enough, So, they all have plus minus. But, I don't know what the sweet spot is. Slightly disagreeable? I don't know. Maybe it's innately agreeable but leaning into some disagreeability. Then you can appreciate what you get,
You think
but get more.
like intentionally?
Yeah. I had a whole take on this before. I called it strategic disagreeability. I think I talked about it maybe on the podcast.
A while ago, I think.
So what happened is, I'll tell you when I first kind of stepped into this whole theory and this how this idea came to me. I needed to have some work done in my car. I used to have this Infinity, and I had it for a long time. It was old, and the whole suspension was shot. So I brought it down here to Direct Tire. These guys in Norwood, nice guys, right at the end of the street here where our gym is. And I knew it was going to cost a fair amount of money, and I was annoyed. I didn't want to pay for it. So I just had this like annoyed look on my face when I handed over my car keys, and they were telling me what had to be done, and it was about $2,000 to get it up to speed, And they said, all right, come back and we'll let you know when it's ready, or come back at the end of the day or something. And I was totally pissed off. I'm like, I don't want to spend $2,000 on this, but it's better than the alternative, whatever. So for whatever reason, I had a shitty attitude about it, annoyed look on my face. And when I went to pay for it, the manager came out and he said, I know you're really upset with us, so what we decided to do is take $500 off the bill. And I wasn't upset with them at all. I think they're great guys. They do great work. But I had this shitty look on my face, and it saved me $500. And I was bewildered, and I just said, okay.
So that's why you keep walking around with this shitty look
That's
on your
it.
face?
It saves you money, man. You get free money if people think you're annoyed. Yeah. So, but you can be strategically disagreeable. I told you another time I was staying in Manhattan on a trip, and my girlfriend and I went up to the room, and we had some show we wanted to watch on Netflix that night. And we went to turn on Netflix. It didn't work. And we were like, oh, well. We didn't think anything. We called down, and they go, oh, yeah, the Netflix is out. Oh, okay. So then we said, we'll watch it tomorrow night. And then the next night, the Netflix was out again. And I called. I said, what's going on? They go, yeah, it's been out for a while. We don't expect it to be back soon. And then I pretended to be mad, and I said, well, I'm really, really upset about this. I am very angry. I really wanted to watch a show. You said you had Netflix, and now you're telling me there's no Netflix. And they said, well, I'll tell you what, you don't have to pay for the room service that you ordered. So it's like $75. So pretending to be mad, I saved myself $75.
You're at least $575 up.
Right. And I wasn't mad in either case. I didn't even care. It was like a joke when I was, and I didn't even sound mad. I didn't even pretend to be mad. I just said, I'm very, very angry, and you should do something about this.
And as you're saying, I'm thinking, I sometimes go through life being very agreeable, and then there are people who pounce on it. I don't think I told it, but like just hit like a little tiny one-off thing. Like I brought my car in. This is like a month ago. I don't know if I told you this or not, but I just brought my car in. Just the purely nice thing to say. I just go, sorry, would you like me to leave my key? This is just for a service. I go, would you like me to leave my key in the ignition or something, whatever I said.
Yeah.
The woman turns to me and goes, you can leave it wherever you want, and walks away. I'm like, what?
What is that?
What was that? You know, like I'm just sitting there like, why? Like, why did you say that? Why did she say that? Do you know what I mean? Like,
so funny.
And earlier, like just that same day, did I tell you when I went to get the paint from Home Depot?
No.
Same kind of thing. I was painting my fireplace. So I couldn't, there's like special paint you get for brick.
Okay. Yeah.
And I couldn't see that paint. So I
couldn't find it in the store.
I couldn't find it. So I go to, but I knew they had it somewhere in Home Depot. So I go to the front and I'm like, but again, I use that very agreeable, very nice tone. Maybe I'm over attributing this to that, but I came up and I'm like, I'm sorry. I looked all over myself. I didn't want to bother you, but I want to paint my fireplace and I can't find the brick paint. And he looks at me and goes, like, gets this angry look. And I'm already like, what's happening now? Like, and he just gets this angry look. And he goes, you can't paint the inside of a fireplace. And I'm like, yeah, what? Again, I'm like, yeah, I'm not painting the inside of the fireplace. Like, why did you assume I meant the inside of the fireplace? You know what I mean? I was just like, yeah, no, I'm just painting the wood.
I'm painting the logs.
The logs.
Yeah.
I want to paint the flame, please. Do you have flame paint? I couldn't see any flame paint. I want a nice green. Like, I'm just like, no, yeah, the outside of the fire. Like, why did you assume that? Like, why? What do you mean? Like, why did he do that? And I actually think from you, like, it's because I came up like with that really nice tone and really like, I look for it myself and don't want to bother you. And I think that people pounce on it. Like,
I think they can. Yeah.
Definitely. So I'm sort of like, I mean, people are also unpleasant and they like to fight and all this stuff, but it's like there's people who like conflict. And
I think they're intuitively measuring your agreeability by your approach.
I think if you got to come up a little angrier and just be like, hey, do you have...
You're probably going to get people hopping to you more.
Paint, yeah.
Yeah. You don't have to be obnoxious, but if you seem all business, I think you get a better response, unfortunately. Yeah.
Right. That's what I think, and it's worth doing it intentionally.
Definitely.
Like just dialing down that sweetheart tone of voice. And
definitely. You think that works. You think people will appreciate it, but they don't. Right?
Yeah, nobody. You get nothing.
Because some poor person working at Home Depot making not a great wage, and they're just struggling to get through the day. So they're just going with the flow. They're going to take.
But I try to think when people have been nice to me, I'm like, so when, and I told a story like a year ago on this podcast about like, I'm like, when did the airline give me first class tickets for free? It wasn't, I mean, upgrade me to first class. It wasn't when I was nice, right? It was, if you remember the story, it was some guy was screaming at the woman in front of the counter, and I'd been like up all night at a kind of a...
You were a hungover man.
Yeah.
Your power, it's like your superpower. You were hungover.
That's what we were saying,
You can do Herculean things.
And I was just so like, I had that like deadened affect and just felt miserable, and it was so... I stepped in, I ordinarily wouldn't, but I just stepped right into the breach and just said something to him like, hey, it's not her fault. Like, what are you doing yelling at her? You know, like she can't do anything. Like, just take the tickets and go. There's a line behind you. Something like that. And he just kind of scurried off. And that's when she moved. It wasn't like I wasn't friendly to anybody. And then she said like, thanks, that guy. And I was like, yeah. Like, wasn't even friendly to her after that. I was like, yeah, because,
Yeah, well, there is a theory in evolutionary psychology that women like a certain disagreeability in their mate, in their man, because of just that, because they want the guy to be able to stand up for them. Like, if the guy's too agreeable, he's not going to stand up and say, hey, give her a break, get out of here, beat it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's where disagreeability pays off.
Yeah, I can't think of a time. I'm sure agreeability pays off sometimes, but
Oh, it definitely does. But
mostly
you need a certain amount of disagreeability as well.
Yeah, and mostly just in these kind of interactions, I think you're better off being all business, like you said, and you don't. You're not going to gain a ton. I think then again, sometimes you chat with like there's someone working at your house, and you chat with them and bring them something to drink or bring them a water or something. Like sometimes they'll avoid like overcharging you, or be like, he's a nice guy.
Funny, yeah, that might be a strategy too. Yeah.
On the other hand, I'm thinking I've heard it where like people that clean houses, and they'll be like, I need to shuffle my schedule, and they'll be like, well, I'm not gonna ask this guy, like all like the rudest ones.
Right.
The schedule will be locked in stone. They're like, I'm not going to ask that guy.
Right.
And it's all the people that are friendly with them. They'll be like, well, hey, can I come a different day? Because they're friendly. Like, you know what I mean? Like, they'll impose on the friendly people.
Yeah.
And won't want to mess with the mean people.
I've heard this about house cleaners, that if you get too friendly with them, the whole quality of the service goes down the tubes fast. They just start hanging out with you. They don't even clean. They come over and have coffee with you.
Buddy.
Yeah. Yeah, I noticed something a little bit like that with the young woman who cuts my hair. It's all friendly and chatty, and I'm relatively agreeable, but I found that my haircut is getting faster and faster. I'm in and out of there in like 4 minutes, and I'm like, what the hell am I paying for? When I look at the thing, it's like, they're supposed to shave your neck, hot towels, like all of this stuff.
They did that probably on the first time you were in, and now
I get nothing now, and I think it's because they sense, I got him. He's agreeable. He's not going anywhere. She does do an excellent job, actually, at cutting my hair. Did I tell you my whole thing about hair cutting? I used to go down to the Sal's in JP, which is like a real old school inner city barbershop.
Barbershop pole.
They did, and I don't know how I got to going there, but now that I live in Norwood, to go to JP, it's like a 40-minute ride or something. And then to park, it became a pain in the ass. And the guys actually weren't great at it. One day I was sitting there, I looked up at the guys cutting my hair, and they're all like, they look like a mess. I'm like, these guys are my image consultants. They look terrible. They had terrible haircuts themselves, and their haircuts were good, sometimes not so good. Other times it was a little, they took it very seriously though, because this one guy had always wanted to get my haircut shorter, and I think he was Moroccan. I think they were all Moroccan guys, and he'd go, listen, brother, let me tell you. And he wouldn't do it. He was like, it was against his principle to cut my hair the way I wanted to cut. So I respected that, but it wasn't great. It was very inexpensive. It was like,
he insisted on mediocre haircuts.
He insisted on it. So then I thought there was a place here in Westwood, 188 University Ave, and it's more expensive. But when I was thinking about the travel time, I'm like, this is actually cheaper because I'm saving myself like an hour something commute. And I'm like, yeah, well, that's crazy. So I went there, and the first time she cut my hair, it was the best haircut I had in my life. So I was like, oh, well, this is kind of a no-brainer. So it's still the best haircut I've ever had, but it's getting shorter and shorter, and it seems like there's less going into it. So
you're being too friendly.
And I think the price is going up, too. So, yeah.
So you think you got to be a little meaner next time you go in?
I think next time I go in, I'm just going to, when it's all done, I'm going to stand up and complain. I'm going to say, this doesn't look that good. I don't know what the hell I'm doing coming here, and just storm out.
Let's see how that goes.
Yeah. I think I'll start to get the hot towel on the neck after that, maybe.
Yeah. You might be surprised. I don't have that many haircut anecdotes myself, barbershop anecdotes. One thing I'll say, when I was a kid, I did have a completely, a barber that was blatantly fall down drunk all the time.
Yeah.
And my parents kept taking us to him.
Unbelievable. What is with that, right?
It's one of those things where it's similar to what you're saying. Like, it was like, this is our barber, and it was locked in. Like no matter, like, you know what I mean?
Crazy,
It was like,
right?
This is our barber, and it was like, oh, it's a shame that he could barely stand up today. But it was like, what are you going to do? Like
What are you going to do?
And I was a little kid. I'm like, well, yeah, you got to.
Dan, I had that very same experience. One time I took Rory when he was a young boy in Hyde Park in Cleary Square down to the neighborhood barbershop at the barbershop pole. And I think it was right before Christmas. So everybody was in there getting their haircuts. And I go in there and we got to wait a little bit. And I look over and one of the guys who's cutting kids' hair, he can barely stand up. His eyes were so glassy. His mouth was open. Drool was coming out of his mouth. He was staggering. And people were sitting there getting their hair cut by him. It's like, what the hell is going on? So I left. Yeah, I didn't stand for that.
He's my guy. Like he moved up to.
Maybe he moved up to Boston, yeah. Then another time I took my son back to to Rosendale Square, to a place where, you know, a traditional place there that's been there for decades, and I used to get my hair cut there. And I bring my son in there, who is a handsome guy. He's got beautiful hair. He's a young kid. I mean, this kid is this handsome little guy. Like you basically, you can't screw up his hair. Yeah. Beautiful hair. And I see this guy, and I'm like, oh, I don't know the guy's name, but I know he's been cutting hair at this place for at least 20 years. Send my son over them. He somehow screws his hair up. I mean, beyond bad. I'm like, how did you do this? Like, I could have given the guy a better haircut. And then it dawned on me, this guy's been doing this for 20 years, and he still sucks at it. He's not even just good. He sucks at it. And that just blew my mind. It's his profession, his full-time job that he's done for decades, and he's terrible
and sort
at
of
it.
In the face of a lot we talk about on this podcast and about jiu-jitsu, like stick with things.
I think it underscores something, Dan, where you brought this up in the last podcast. You were saying, oh, I bet all the jiu-jitsu teachers are better today just because they've been doing it for 10 years or 20 years or something. And that's not necessarily the case. If you're not deliberately trying to improve and get better at your methods, you don't get any better. You need that pressure to improve. And if you can show up drunk, staggering, and people just keep coming, guess what? You may never sober up. You may never get any better.
But that's actually interesting about jiu-jitsu, because I think we've both heard a lot, and probably a lot of people listening have heard this a lot, that it's just like, just show up.
Right.
And that's directly not true, right? Like,
it's
just
not
show up. It's sort of like mat time. I mean, not that there's not value in mat time,
right?
But it's sort of like, that's like a minimum requirement. It's not like if you just show up and show up and show up, that's not going to do it.
Yeah.
You
the
need
word
a strategy.
I think deliberate practice is the word, and the key is the deliberate part. If you just show up and practice, go through the motions, you're not necessarily going to get better, you know, at anything. That's the key thing. And I just, don't you notice it now? Just, you were talking about training and losing weight and getting fit. I don't have an immediate goal, physical goal, and I find it very hard to maintain my training and my eating. So I think we have this idea, you have this long-term goal with no deadline, be a world champion or something, and then you invest yourself in the process. But I think you need some short-term goals to keep you sharp, keep you doing the process, because I don't want to do some of the things. And
right.
And it's more than just having the process. You need something to keep you focused. You know what I mean? You need almost a fear or some negative consequence looming that'll stimulate.
For me,
you.
What's working is, because first of all, I've sort of said the opposite, where I'm like, I sort of like with my fitness not having a goal, because then it's not like a diet where you're like, reach the weight and then it's just gone, like most people do. They're like the real yo-yo dieters that, like, they reach their goal weight and then they're just back or heavier than ever.
Yeah.
But for me, just tracking my weight, because I've not someone that tracked my weight at all through my whole life. Right. I still sort of cringe at it, by the way. Like all these people listening, all these weeks of us talking about dieting, I always still sort of feel like it's not really that, like, it's such a guy thing to be like dieting or weighing yourself and all this stuff. But what I use it for is what you're saying. That's the little bit of the, like, that's how I watch, and I don't want to get back
It's
to.
a little negative pressure
I
to keep you in
don't
line.
want to get to 185, and I don't. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's the thing that stops me. Like if
Yeah.
I wasn't checking my weight at all, I don't know that I could keep with it.
Right.
That's the one thing that's kind of making me stay with it.
I heard Jordan Peterson on some podcast the other day, and he was talking about, I don't know how accurate this is, but it was an interesting idea about a mouse going through a maze and there's cheese. Like, so that's the typical thing. And if there's a hungry mouse, he'll do a good job of finding his way through the maze to get the cheese. And they said the only way to make him go faster is you sort of waft in the scent of a cat behind him, and then that's going to make him go even faster. And so you have those two things. You got, you're running from the cat and you're moving toward the cheese. That twofold process is going to motivate you more. And I'm sensing that now. I don't have like that, oh, shoot, I don't want to embarrass myself in 6 weeks at this tournament. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I need to find something like that in my life to give myself a little bit of the stick as well as the carrot, right?
Do you have either one? Do you have the cat or the cheese? I think you're missing.
Not strongly enough. Yeah, I think I'm missing all of it. Yeah. I got to figure that out. Yeah.
Right.
Figure out what my cheese is and then what my cat is. But I think it's an interesting metaphor anyways. Yeah.
Yeah. I like don't be a drunken barber.
Don't be a drunken barber.
Yeah.
I think that's what we're going to title this episode. The Drunken Barber episode. That is so funny that we both had that exact same experience of a
drunken barber.
I cannot exaggerate how drunk this guy was.
Wait, did you have a drunken barber?
Almost fell. This guy I saw was almost falling over. He was so drunk. I thought he was going to fall in his face.
My guy was like that all the time.
All the
He
time.
was just drunk all the time.
I only went in this one barbershop once, and the barbershop from the outside looked like something from a Norman Rockwell painting. You know what I mean? It was old-timey. It was in this old building in Cleary Square. The building was probably 120 years old, and turn-of-the-century building or something, and it looked cool, and the barbershop pole. And you go inside, and this guy is just legless drunk. Yeah. Weird, right?
But I also like how my parents were like, well, we have to go back to him. It doesn't. Well, they were like that with everything. I think maybe there's comfort in that. Like it was like, let's always get food. We always eat at this one restaurant, and then they get to know you. And I think they like
my
that.
parents were big on not rocking the boat as well.
Yeah.
That was a big part of their whole approach to life. We will not rock the boat. Yeah.
Yeah. Like we had when I was growing up, we had a car mechanics that were just horrible. Like the car would just break down. It was like part of my childhood was the car was in the shop. Maddie and Sal's, it was called. Like there was cars at Maddie and Sal's. I don't even think that's even the name of the shop, but it was like since we knew them so well.
Oh, right.
That's what, we knew them. And I'm like, that's only as in my adulthood was like, why did we know the names of our mechanics? Like how often was it our car in the shop? It was like, yeah, they would fix it and it would just break again. But they were our guys. Like
so they were loyal.
Yeah, we just never ever changed. You could be a drunken barber, incompetent mechanic, serve terrible food in your restaurant. None of it mattered.
Yeah, I don't think that flies as much today. I don't know.
Hopefully and not with me. I think we're more rock the boat people.
Yeah.
Than,
Yeah, I didn't bring my son back to the guy who gave him the horrible, horrible haircut. And I didn't let him get his haircut by the falling down drunk guy. So
yeah, maybe you should have.
I don't know.
Maybe the drunk guy was really good.
No. I'm surprised he didn't stick his scissors in some kid's ear.
Yeah.
He was just out of it. No, I think those are wise parenting decisions.
Yeah.
So if my son ever complains about my parenting, I'm going to point to those 2 episodes.
Yeah. You could have. Yeah. He could have spent his childhood with a horrible haircut.
Could have lost one of his ears from the drunken barber. So Dan, I don't know. Are we coming up on it? We're a little early.
Yeah, but I think
we're at a natural break.
Summary.
Okay, a summary. So
we already said don't be a drunken barber.
Don't be a drunken barber. You need to use deliberate practice.
Otherwise, you could do something for 20 years
and suck at it. Yep. Find your cheese and find your cat odor. Your carrot and your stick. Talked about that. We talked about strategic disagreeability, Dan.
Right.
Being strategically disagreeable can pay off at times. Keep you from getting taken advantage of. And we talked about slightly overestimating your abilities, except when it comes to insulting large bouncers at nightclubs. Avoid that then.
Yeah.
Probably underestimate your abilities.
Well, that's the
then.
key part. Slightly overestimate your abilities.
In key circumstances, not where it's going to hurt you too bad if it doesn't lose.
Right. And again, most people listening, they're going to lean toward underestimating their abilities or being humble. They're going to lean towards agreeability and or being nice out there.
Maybe
and
not.
These are things you could kind of move away from a little bit.
Maybe. And, I also want to give a shout out to, I'm going to start calling our super fan listeners, I was thinking about calling them the Share Tribe, because they're going to share our episode, and they share our episode. What do you think about that, Dimitri? They share it on social media. So
we could ask them what they want to be called.
All right, we'll ask them. Definitely. And so John Burke and Marilyn Burke, I count them as super fans. Dennis Medina, I get to roll with him fairly often. Great guy. Rob Curran, of course. We lock horns on the regular on the mats. Great super fan. Chris Ramos, I haven't seen him in a bit. Super fan. Chris Pandolfo,
right.
New super fan. He shared our episode, had great things to say about our podcast. You know what? I think he just became a dad, believe it or not.
It seemed that way.
Yeah, you saw that on Facebook?
On Facebook, yeah.
So exciting. These young guys, I know them as like really young guys, and then all of a sudden the years go by and they become dads. It's pretty awesome. Mark Vogel is a super fan. He's always promoting us. Tyler King, super fan. We should probably get him in here someday. Yeah. Mike Schultz, I think, is a super fan. My son, Rory, I don't consider him a super fan, but I tend to mention him. Maria Kipreos, I'll count her as a super fan.
Is Rory a fan? Does he listen to?
He's a fan of you. Oh. He literally tells me he only listens because of you.
You not so much?
No, because he goes, yeah, I hear your crap all the time. So like everything I'm saying on this podcast, I've already told him a few times during the week. So
what
he doesn't
about the barber, though? Did he know about that?
He probably didn't. So I think he might have got some new stuff this week. Alex Rose, super fan, said he loves the podcast. Tin Nguyen. Tin is a super fan. Tin, he mentioned it. He said a couple things. He said, oh, wow, I was listening to you on your podcast. You have like a different personality. You have charisma. Like that's like somehow
the opposite?
A compliment.
Like you're like the opposite.
You're like the opposite of you are in real life. You're actually likable and you have charisma. I was like, gee, thanks, Tin. You know what he remembered from the podcast, which I totally forgot, which is really funny? We had mentioned Gandhi would say that he's sleeping with young women as a test of his willpower. Somehow that struck a chord with him. And he goes, you should do that when you date. You should say, hey, why don't you come home and sleep in my bed as a test of my willpower? And I was like, yeah, I don't know, Tin. I might try that. We'll see how that goes. He was giving me dating advice, I guess. I don't know.
It could work.
Might work.
I guess that's a fail.
But, yeah, Tin is... I'm going to consider him a super fan now, too.
I'm not sure he gets super fan, though.
No?
Just because he mentioned it?
He mentioned it. Yeah, he basically insulted me as well.
Just a fan?
Yeah. All right, he'll be...
He could work his way. He's on his way.
Okay.
He's well on his way.
Can you think of anyone else? I'm sure I'm forgetting people.
Again, we're always forgetting somebody.
We have thousands of super fans out there.
There's so many.
Legion. Yeah. The tribe. The power of the tribe. Got to come up with a new name for them. But that's it. Thank you all for listening. Please keep sharing it and let us know what ideas are working for you, what makes sense. And we'll talk to you next week.